Alrighty folks, today I've got another video in a spreadsheet for you. Recently I put out the video for magic power build testing, so check that one out if you're interested in building big magic power for mid laners or potentially magic carries or whatever you want to do that involves huge amounts of magic power, because that one was fun. I put out a follow-up video to that one where I took some of those builds into the testing grounds and see how the builds translated to actual in-game damage numbers, which was cool and also informative. I learned that pen is king, basically, and so check those out if you're interested in magic power building. Today we've got something a little different again. Instead of looking at a overarching, stat that we're building the most of or anything like that, we're actually crunching the numbers for crunch builds. So crunch is not a hero that I play. I don't play jungle. I do play a lot of off lane, but I've got a lot of other off laners that I like playing, so not a big crunch guy, and I've never really looked at how to build on him, and I didn't realize it was so complicated. So crunch is a unique hero because he gets scaling from multiple, on all of his abilities actually, and his passive, from both physical power and magical power. So very odd to build on him, even more complicated to build on him than someone like Quang, where you're just wanting to build magic power and armor and health. On crunch, you're kind of weighing, do you want to build physical power? Do you want to build all health, armor, magic power? What kind of combination works? So figured I would hop in here and do a bunch more number crunching, and it was only fitting that we do crunch. We got a request specifically to look at crunch builds, and I've also got a friend who's been trying to play crunch some and trying to find builds, and you just can't really find builds. I mean, you can go on YouTube and find a couple people who have done builds for him, but a lot of them are really outdated since items have been updated, and I don't think anyone has really dove in this deep and tried to figure out what's really possible with them. So if you're interested in crunch, this is going to be the video for you. We're going to go through a little bit here. We're going to go through it quicker than I did with the magic power building video, because this is just unique to crunch, so not as universal of applications as the magic power building. But we'll go through here and take a look at what I've come up with. We've got some builds. We've got some builds that I've put together, and I have already done some testing with some of these, and some testing with different items individually. We will probably plan to put out a follow-up video to this. I'm not sure what format I'm going to do that in yet, because it's a little bit harder to test, stuff like how effective is armor and whatnot without actually just playing games. So I may just release a couple different crunch full games testing these builds, because crunch varies a lot early game to late game, and you really have to kind of see how the match develops to understand what these builds are giving you and what you're getting out of them. So let's go through it, how I've laid this out. Again, as the last one, if you want access to this spreadsheet, I will put a link. This time I'll just put a link in the top comment, I guess, and you guys can come check out this spreadsheet, make yourself a copy of it or whatever, play with it, add some more items to it, come up with some new builds in it. If you like the format, add some more stat rows to it if you want to investigate other stats or the gold value of these items or whatever you want to investigate. But if you do want this, it will give you a very significant head start to making your own calculations or your own builds on crunch if you're a big time crunch player. So what I've done first is I listed what I kind of thought were some of the most valuable items on crunch, and I went through here and separated them out into items that you're building for physical power, items that you're building for magical power, items that you're building for haste specifically or cooldown, items that you're building for your health, armor, and sustain, and then the different starter evolutions. Another reason that crunch is so complicated to build for is he can get good use out of, I would say, these 6, maybe even potentially more of the starter item evolutions. So got a lot of testing to do to actually see what comes out best, but We've got it all laid out here, and I've put rows for their physical power that they give, magic power, their haste, health, physical and magical armor, and then everything that's not listed here, so like Omnivamp, mana, pin, all that other stuff, as well as the item's passive, I've just condensed down into other value on a scale from on a scale from 1 to 10 of how I would rate the other value that you get out of this item, specifically on Crunch. So how good does he proc the passive? You know, how much pin and lifesteal does it give you relative to other items? So I've kind of just condensed that into one item, into one row here. It's not really that useful when we get to the total numbers, because, you know, what does this really mean? This isn't really this is kind of opinion based, but at least it'll give you an idea of what other stuff you get other than just these main core stats. So just listed them all out here. You know, you've got the basics, you've got a lot of ones that you would expect to see or that you would see recommended on other people's Crunch builds, a lot of items that you guys are probably building, but as you can see, it's quite a lot. There's quite a huge build diversity on Crunch. He just gets good use out of so many items that it's a lot to go through. I've kind of condensed that down here into some of the standout items, so we will walk through those real quick before we look at these builds. This is by no means all of the items that Crunch gets good use out of. I'm sure I left some out of this category, and I'm sure some of these other ones could be added to the standout items category. It's kind of, you know, how you want to play him and what you want to get out of him. But going through these main ones, you got Mutilator. Mutilator's a great one. It's a good passive. It's now got 12% Omnivamp since the last update. You know, you get good haste from it, and the passive is good for burning tanks because it is max health based. We've got Perforator. Perforator's a great item. It basically gives you all the pin that you're going to need for most assassin builds and, you know, jungle builds, solo lane builds, whatever it is. Pin is essentially king, as I've found in the magical number crunching, and Perforator gives you the bonus of coming with, let's see, where is it, 15 ability haste on top and slow down on ability hits. So good overall, hard to take anything else as your pin item. Augmentation, this one's very similar to Mutilator. You know, it gives you power, it gives you ability haste, but other than Mutilator, it gives you health rather than Omnivamp. So if you want raw health, you can get that from Augmentation versus Mutilator, which is just going to give you Omnivamp kind of in its place. You've got Orb of Growth. Orb of Growth is always one that I'm trying to get value out of, because late game it just gives you insane stat value. I mean, what you get from Orb of Growth is just ridiculous. 119 magic power and 466 health when it's done stacked up to Orb of Enlightenment and you're at level 18. So more single item power and health than you can get pretty much anywhere else, as well as a great passive, 3% of your health back on hitting abilities. You're going to be spamming abilities on Crunch, so that's going to give you a lot of health back over the course of the game. Oathkeeper, this is a good one. Again, great stat value, gives you a lot of power, health, and haste. And it's also got a decent passive that you're going to be proccing pretty much every 1.5 seconds that it's off cooldown with Crunch, because you're spamming abilities with him. Time Warp simply has unmatched cooldown potential and the most mana sustain that you're going to get out of any single item. So it's nice that someone who's dealing physical damage can get value out of Time Warp, because no other like solo laner or assassin is going to be able to really build Time Warp. Not a physical damage one is going to be able to build Time Warp and get good value out of it. So nice to see this. This is definitely a standout item on Crunch. Ashbringer, this is one of the lower tier ones realistically, but if you're doing a full damage type Crunch, Ashbringer does give you elite cooldown potential and a little bit of crit on top, which is just kind of funny to see when you're swinging with Crunch. You could crit someone a couple times and end them before they know what's happening. But, you know, if you're going full cooldown on Crunch, which you're probably going to be, this is just an extra passive cooldown proc. Kind of hard to calculate how much it gives you because you get cooldown for getting hit. So Interesting one for sure. Elefrost, this one's a no-brainer. It's a very meta item right now on most solo laners and a lot of junglers as well. It's a good mix of all the useful stats that you want. You know, where do we have? We surely have it down here. Elefrost, yeah, 30 power, 15 haste, 400 health, which is crazy because it also gives you 30 physical armor, and a great passive to boot for clearing and for slowdown potential. So Elefrost is really a no-brainer on just about any solo laner at this point, even ones that don't benefit from the physical power. Void Helm, this is a great item on anyone who's healing because you get good stat value from it. You know, very few magical armor items really give you decent stat value, but Void Helm gives you good health, armor, and extra healing, so what's not to like, right? Giant's Ring, this is just a very strong tank item because it gives you percent mitigation. So, you know, not too many items can give you percent mitigation. In late game, that percent mitigation is going to beat out armor almost every time. Giant's Ring also has the benefit of coming with 15 ability haste, which is great. So, and then 45 physical armor, which is the highest of all these armor items that we put down here. So if you're going tank, or if you want to build big armor, definitely got to include Giant Ring in there for the strong passive. Mist Meadow Buckler, it just has great magical armor value. The way the passive works and stacks up on this, you know, it front loads your magical armor when you enter a fight, which is where you need it because that's, you know, you're likely going to get blown up first thing if the mage also has all their abilities off cooldown. So very effective magic armor item, and you get Omnivamp from it, so you know, helps you stay healed up, especially when you're comboing it with like Void Helm or something. And then last but not least, Magnify. Similar to Oathkeeper, just consistent damage procs when you're hitting your abilities and then swinging afterwards. And you're spamming abilities so fast that it's going to be up almost all the time. And Magnify has the bonus of giving you 15% magic armor shred, or yeah, I think it's shred, or it's either pin, or you know, however it works. But 15% magic armor shred is great late game on a build where you're not building any other magic pin. It'll just give you a little bit of extra damage because you will be proccing some magic damage from stuff like Oathkeeper and Crunch's passive particularly. So some standout items for sure. We've taken those as well as some of these over here on the left and put together some builds. We'll go through them real quick, but I'm not gonna break down every build. You can just stop and look at these if you want, or you can use these as kind of ideas. They're kind of loose builds for the most part. You know, realistically, you could probably swap 1 or 2 items out of any one of these builds for 1 or 2 different items in the standout tree, or even 1 or 2 items over here in the valuable items section. If you're interested in, you know, switching it around, you're going to want to build to your opponents anyway. So this isn't the end-all be-all builds list. We'll come up with some more concrete builds after we do some testing for sure. But these builds over here on the left were the first builds I came up with. First, we got like a glass cannon burst build based on building a lot of physical power. So, you know, you've got Mutilator, you've got Perforator for your pin, you've got Tainted Blade for anti-heal and extra percent damage. I believe it gives you 8% extra damage once they're already hit with the Tainted Blade, so 8% damage is a huge amount late game. I mean, that's comparable to like how Worldbreaker stacks up. Ashbringer, because good stat value with 25 haste, Time Warp, unmatched cooldowns, Basilisk for even extra physical pin, and then Nex for the mobility as your starter item evolution. You know, get that little jump on people and extra slowdown. Can be very valuable to surprise people and finish them off. So overall, built this build for maximum cooldown. We see this has 64.4% cooldown after adding the Time Warp bonus. You see the 12.5% basically is what Time Warp's cooldown is equivalent to. So massive cooldown. you're going to be able to swing, once you're proccing Crunch's passive, you're going to be able to swing left crunch, right crunch every probably 2 seconds each. So just, almost full ability combo where you're hitting one ability auto, one ability auto, one ability auto. You pretty much have to keep that up endlessly with this much cooldown. You really don't even need this much to keep that up, for being honest. But max cooldown, Perforator for the massive pin, and so it comes out to 28% pin from Perforator plus 11 additional flat pin from Perforator plus Next, plus Basilisk is going to shred their armor even more, so you're going to be able to just completely nuke tanks. I mean, this is a glass cannon jungle build for sure. What I've done with each of these builds is I've crunched together the auto attack bonus from his passive, so every time you hit an ability, his passive gives you your next auto attack 20% of your physical and magical power as damage. So I've put that here. It does it as magical damage, so you have no magical pin on this build, so that's what this second box is for. And then here's your haste as a percentage. And then also for the fun of it, since his abilities scale off of both physical and magical power, we've put underneath all of these builds a sample expectation of what the left crunch damage should do. So all of his abilities deal physical damage, so this is dealt as physical damage. You see it's, it scales off of both of them there. So this is a sample. You'll see that on all these builds at how much the left crunch can do. The left crunch is kind of the one you're spamming the most and has the most cooldown, so I figured it would be the one to really look at on all these to see what they do. So that is the glass cannon burst build. Did a similar one where we just built all magical power items with magical attack speed in mind, because you're going to have prophecy and typhoon, similar to like a magical carry build. You're going to get a lot of attack speed from that. I didn't crunch the attack speed number anywhere, but it's a big number on what your attack speed is going to be at after Typhoon is stacked up from your 4th hit. But yeah, big magic power, huge amount of magic power after the World Breaker bonus from the health and everything. You can see that the left crunch is hitting significantly harder, but you don't have any physical pin. You also you have about half the cooldown speed, because this one is based on doing more damage with your autos. That's why we've got like Oathkeeper in here and stuff. But you do have Caustica for the armor ignore and magnify for the pin as well. So your empowered autos are coming out way harder because you get the prophecy bonus right there. You get the prophecy bonus as well as his original passive. So his autos are going to hit extremely hard, and you're going to have the pin to back it. So if you want to do more magical damage, here's a potential full magical blaster build, swinging hard with the autos. Built one here for kind of tank build, coming out with a couple good magic power items, really just Orb of Growth, and some physical power items with some haste to back it. Again, not as much cooldown as you would probably like to build on Crunch, but if you're building full tank, you stay in the fight longer, and those cooldowns will come back eventually, especially late game when you have them leveled anyway. So big health, 2300 health built here with decent armor, 75 and 65 additional armor built. Again, less power built than these, so left crunch is not going to hit very hard. Your empowered auto is not going to hit very hard, and we've got no pin from any items, so this is just kind of full tank if you need to stay alive. If you're playing solo and your team doesn't have the beefiest jungle or support, you may want to end up building full tank just so you can kind of engage. Again, this features Orb of Growth because massive value, massive single item power and health value coming out of that, plus your sustain. A lot of this will give you more sustain. You've got extra healing from Void Helm, you've got Omnivamp from Mist Meadow, you've got Salvation for giving you a big shield when you go low enough health, and then you've got Judgment as your upgraded starter item to give you that healing back from that as well, so that'll proc on Void Helm as well. So good tank build. Did a little in-game scaling build just for the fun of it. You know, you gotta look at all your options. This one is got Orb of Growth and Resolution to stack up, so you want to get those online pretty early to get more physical power out of Resolution. This is just the base power that it gives. By the time its passive is on, you're going to get a lot more out of it. So this total 77 physical power is not even close to what you'll actually be. But you've also got Prophecy, you know, comboing it with Resolution for the extra attack speed. Your autos are going to be able to come out faster and hit harder. So a lot of magical power to back it, because we've got some health items in here as well as World Breaker to give you that extra 5% of your built health as power. So overall pretty good. Little bit of pin, not very much pin, but your late game scaling with this is going to be crazy. We've also got Ortus in here, so you can hit that before you go in and get your takedowns, and then let that stack up even more physical power. So, you know, this doesn't have pin on it, so you may end up having to swap one of these out for a pin item, but it's got a lot of good percent scaling. I didn't want to leave out an armor item, so, you know, we got Void Helm and Elefrost on here. Even if you're in the jungle, you know, you're going to want some armor late game, or you're going to just get deleted. And we didn't really stack up a bunch of cooldown, so it is what it is. This is just a funny build. Another funny build, this one I called Glued to Ya. It's basically 6 items that either give you speed or slow down your opponent. So, you know, we've got Perforator, which gives you slowdown on ability hits. We've got Elefrost, which gives you the slowdown on your autos after you hit an ability. We've got Dreambinder, which does the same thing as Perforator, except it gives you magic power. So both of those proccing at once. When you're hitting someone with your right crunch, which also applies a slow already, it's just going to completely stop them from moving. You know, you're proccing like 3 or 4 slowdowns at once. Berserker's Axe, again, movement speed, coming through the jungle, coming through fog walls or whatever, massive movement speed buff to stay glued to people. Gaia Greaves, you know, gives you movement speed that stacks up before you engage, gives you tenacity so you can stay after them if they're trying to push you off of them or whatever, slow you down. And good stat value, you know, 15 ability haste on Gaia Greaves is quite decent. World Breaker, this one could probably be swapped out for something else if you just wanted to, but need to get some extra power out, because you have 1700 health built, so, you know, get some decent some extra 5% power from that for World Breaker. Gets us up to 215, which isn't bad. And then next, because it gives you that jump and that slowdown. So just all slowdown items, and, you know, just having fun with it. 40% cooldown. Left crunch is hitting for okay damage. Not a lot of pin built or anything special, so I don't expect it to be a good build, but it's probably a funny build to terrorize people with. So finally, we've got 2 sample builds that are probably more realistic. Again, I need to do some more testing, and I am not a jungle main, so this may not really benefit you as much in jungle as like a professional jungle player would tell you to build. But what we've got, and these are also not in order. I don't know if I mentioned that already, but don't build these in the order that they're sitting right here. Build these in the order that you need them as the game comes. Probably like Mutilator first on most of these builds, and you're stacking items kind of second or third if you're trying to stack something up. So looking at these, I've got a kind of sample jungle hybrid build where we've got Orb of Growth in here because it gives you great late game value, Mutilator for the Omnivamp and the procs, Time Warp for cooldown, Perforator for slowdown and pin, Elefrost because you need some sort of armor, and also it gives you that additional slowdown and damage proc, help you clear fast too if you take it a little earlier, but if you're taking it late, then you're not taking it for the jungle camp clear. Magnify, I put in here, I originally had Mist Meadow here because there's no magic armor items on this build. This is, you know, more of a jungle kind of glass cannon blow up somebody type crunch build. And then Icecorn Talons because, you know, great 1v1 potential, great ability to trap people in the jungle or in objective fights or whatever it may be. But yeah, this is how that build comes out. Again, really good cooldown because Time Warp, Time Warp is like your one-stop shop for insane amounts of cooldown. But we've also got ability haste built from all these other items, so it comes out pretty good. 53% is more than you realistically need, but you'll be able to spam your abilities, which is great. Reason I added Magnify here is because it's going to give you that 15% magical pin. And since you've got Perforator built as well, you've got that physical pin, so late game you're going to be able to do decent physical and magical damage when your Magnify is proccing and your auto attack passive is proccing and everything. You're going to be able to hit pretty hard, good balance of pin and damage. And then finally we've got a Bruiser build, which I've already done some testing on and played around with, but Augmentation over Mutilator, they're kind of interchangeable, but I went Augmentation for the health because we've got World Breaker on this build, so you want as much health as possible. We actually see this as all health items to get good value from World Breaker, similar to how you would build Quang a lot of times. Tainted Blade, I've already done some testing and it is decent, but you could realistically swap this for Mutilator in here or another power item and get good value, but Tainted Blade comes with the health as well, so no downsides there. Giant's Ring for our physical armor item gives you good tank late game with the mitigation. Salvation I'm a fan of because it can kind of surprise people with the shield, still gives you good power, 500 health is good value too. And then Void Helm because it's just great to have the extra healing. And then Tempest as our starter upgrade, which I haven't had too much success with in my testing so far, so this would be something that might get swapped out, but I like the idea that Tempest can give you healing and damage output, magical damage output, so that's what this one looks like. No pin again, you're in the off lane, so you don't really have room for pin if you want to be tanky. And good cooldown still, so, good value overall. I like it. We'll do some more testing with it for sure. Again, don't build in this order. And you could also swap other stuff. You could swap Tainted Blade for like Orb of Growth. If you just have the opportunity to stack it up, that would probably be good. But yeah, that is the build. Here are the standout items again, if you want to look at them. Any of these I can definitely recommend on Crunch so far for my testing, plus a couple more over there in the left tree. But that's going to do it for this one. Check this spreadsheet out in the top comment if you want to take a look at it yourself and play around in it, make some more builds of your own. We will do a follow-up to this of a couple Crunch, full build testing and build order testing, because like I said, these aren't in order, and we really need to dive into them in game to figure out what the kind of order is that we can get good power spikes out of. So thanks for watching. Check out the recent solo lane videos we've put out if you're interested in solo lane and you like to play Crunch. It's been a little while since we did a Greystone in solo, but we've got a Elefrost Terra solo game out recently, as well as that Quang build testing video, like I said, and did an Iggy and Scorch in solo that you could check out as well if you're interested in that. So thanks for watching. Also look at the tier list if you haven't seen one in a while. Did an updated one that just came out a little bit earlier, and you can see where Crunch is placed on that if you're a Crunch main, and you can go in there and comment that I didn't place them high enough. If you're just really good with Crunch, then I'll understand. So we will see y'all in the next one.